Rescue teams find debris belonging to a missing F-16V fighter jet, but the pilot remains unaccounted for. 10 times the speed of sound. More details emerge about Pyongyang's latest hypersonic missile test. System reboot. The government reopens its online vaccination program as yet more cases of COVID emerge. Plus, when two become one. The secret story behind some of Taiwan's tallest trees is revealed. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Yin Khvat. Search and rescue teams are looking for an F-16V fighter jet that disappeared off Taiwan's west coast on Tuesday afternoon, and they have found debris, but not the pilot. Taiwan's entire F-16 fleet is now grounded for inspections. This is the latest in a string of incidents involving the aircraft model. As James Chater reports, questions are being asked about how an updated version of the F-16 could be involved in an accident.
Debris of the missing F-16V jet, but 28-year-old Taiwanese fighter pilot Chen Yi remains unaccounted for after the aircraft he was captaining went missing off Taiwan's western coast on Tuesday afternoon. In response, Taiwan's entire fleet of some 140 F-16 jets have been grounded for safety inspections and all combat training suspended. But now, questions swirl over how the Air Force's most advanced aircraft could be at the center of another grim accident.
机械因素或者是这个人为的因素或者是天候的因素都有可能啊。那可能是天候的因素跟人为操作的因素占了比较大的部分。机械的因素、人为的因素跟天候因素都没有掌握好，都有可能会失事，所以也没有什么比例上的问题。
Chen had accumulated over 62 hours of flying time in the F-16 model and was operating a routine training exercise at the time of his disappearance. The jet he was flying had a safety inspection in December and was last seen flying at very low altitude shortly after 3 p.m. on Tuesday afternoon.
那反应要非常快，在空中处置的时间以高度成正比，高度越高，处置的时间越多越长，越有安全的裕度。它在低空做大角度的投弹。 这种高度的消失、高度的变化非常的快速。
But wider and tougher questions will be asked about this incident. Most crucially, how even a recently upgraded F-16V, the crown jewel in Taiwan's Air Force, could be involved in an accident. In 2018, Taiwanese pilot Wu Yenting died when his F-16 ploughed into a mountainside in northern Taiwan. And more recently, in November 2020, another F-16 crashed into the Sea of Hualien on Taiwan's eastern coast. Pilot Jiang Zhengzhi couldn't be found even after a month of searches at sea. Since 1998, a total of 8 major accidents involving F-16 aircraft in Taiwan have killed 3 Air Force pilots, with another 5 missing and presumed dead. The grisly incidents fueled concerns over Taiwan's aging aircraft, and that prompted the government to spend around $4 billion on an agreement with Lockheed Martin, upgrading Taiwan's entire F-16 fleet. President Tsai Ing-wen commissioned the first of the upgraded jets into service in only November last year, and the missing aircraft is one of those unveiled.
会不会是飞机基建的问题？当然不排除这个风险，但就以新飞机来看，还有之前做相关的一个检查、试飞等等严谨的程序，我认为其实你很难武断的说是不是一定是这个基建这个原始的问题，或者基建故障，或者设计的问题。
For now, more questions than answers, but one more pressing than the rest. Why has this happened again? Chris Ma and James Chater for TaiwanPlus.
North Korea's second hypersonic missile test in less than a week was more advanced than the first, according to South Korea's military. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un observed the latest launch, the first time he has done so in 2 years. South Korea's military says the second missile reached a top speed of around Mach 10, or 10 times the speed of sound. With concerns over North Korea's recent missile tests involving what Pyongyang says is a hypersonic missile, governments around the world are raising the alarm. Hypersonic missiles have the ability to virtually erase borders and make any country a potential target. But what exactly makes these weapons so unique? Our reporter Jaime Ocon gives us a glimpse into the world of hypersonic missiles.
Like something out of science fiction, these weapons travel so fast that they challenge the laws of physics.
We define hypersonics as going as Mach 5 or above. Mach 1 is speed of sound, so it's going 5 times the speed of sound, at least, or above.
And a recent test from North Korea launching what it says is a hypersonic missile is drawing concern.
These new hypersonic missiles, they are very fast but also maneuverable, and they fly on an unpredictable path. So they're very difficult to defend against, and they're very difficult to determine what target they're going after until the last few seconds or so.
Russia claimed it carried out a successful test launch of its Zircon hypersonic cruise missile in November, with deliveries of the missile to its navy and entry into service expected as early as next year. But Russia isn't the only country working with hypersonics. China displayed its DF-17 hypersonic missile in a military parade in 2019, but little is known about the extent of its capabilities. The US has made similar advancements in hypersonics, but in areas such as space exploration and civil aviation, and has yet to apply it to a military function. It appears a hypersonic arms race is underway, and the Biden administration is pushing to fund hypersonic-related research in their budget for next year.
From a technology point of view, I still think that the United States does have a big advantage. However, I will say that it appears that China and Russia has beat the US in terms of deploying these missiles. But the US is not far behind.
In terms of defending against such an attack, hypersonic missiles present a new challenge. Compared to a ballistic missile that flies high up and takes a longer time to come back into Earth's atmosphere, hypersonic missiles fly lower and make it difficult for defense systems to intercept the coming threat.
Weapons. Engage Los Angeles with 2 GBIs, one from Fort Greely and one from Vandenberg.
Director, threat to Los Angeles, engaged.
Missile defense simulations like this are preparing for the worst. If such a strike was carried out, countries around the world would have little time to react. And there are questions whether the US, or any country for that matter, would be able to stop a hypersonic strike. But what is certain is that news of hypersonic weapons programs in China, Russia, and North Korea are a wake-up call for the rest of the world. Kamashu and Jaime Ocon for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan has recorded 4 more domestic and 92 imported cases of COVID-19. About 2/3 of the imported cases on Wednesday tested positive on arrival. As domestic transmissions continue, businesses and schools are taking extra measures to limit the spread. The government is also restarting its online registration system to help people book a jab without the long wait. Bing Wang reports.
280 workers at a Taoyuan factory are being picked up by these buses to be taken to a quarantine facility. That's after 5 people from the factory tested positive for COVID-19. The factory has temporarily ceased operations. Around 40 people who have tested positive thus far are linked to the Taoyuan airport cluster. Seeing domestic cases in Taoyuan on the rise, the city's mayor ended the fall semester 1 week early for all schools in the city.
入境的确诊个案不断累积，不断增加。那春节前风险仍高，这一次孩子的传播力也是很惊人。那因此我们既然已经考完期末考，就提早放假。
In Taiwan's capital of Taipei, 3 confirmed COVID cases are linked to a Taipei City hospital. 2 are nurses working in the same ward. One of the nurses is married with children, and though her family members all tested negative, her children's school will be suspended for 2 days as a precaution.
那接下去的部分，因为我们还会讨论他们，看他们采检的结果，再决定之后是不是继续停课或复课。
To encourage more people to get vaccinated and boosted, several counties and cities have set up walk-in stations, but some are concerned that these stations will have long lines. In response, the government is reactivating its 1922 vaccination reservation service that helps people book appointments online and over the phone.
预计是15号要开始进行预约了，那主要是针对的是第3季的部分，在15、16号可以上线来预约，可以从这个17号这边开始施打。
With the Omicron variant now making inroads in Taiwan and the Lunar New Year holidays just around the corner, the government hopes these new policies will help contain the spread. Alex Chen and Bing Wang for TaiwanPlus.
With the Beijing Winter Olympics just weeks away, China faces its most widespread COVID-19 outbreak since the pandemic began 2 years ago in Wuhan. Multiple cities around the country are in lockdown as authorities conduct mass testing. In the central city of Anyang, home to more than 5.5 million people, 65 new cases were reported on Wednesday. Footage online shows young children dressed in full hazmat gear being taken into quarantine in the city. China's ruling Communist Party has committed itself to maintaining a zero COVID policy. But with the emergence of the highly infectious Omicron variant, critics question how sustainable the strategy is. An exchange student from Uganda has come forward with allegations of abuse against his Taiwan school. The student says he enrolled in a work-study program at Zhongzhou University of Science and Technology, but did not receive the support he was promised.
I have moved from working over 10 hours a day, spending 3 nights without sleep, and attending classes that I would barely understand anything. That office did not aim at the welfare of the students. Office's purpose is to demand money from international students.
He says he is speaking out now so other students don't suffer like he did. The Ministry of Education has barred the school from enrolling any more foreign students, but supporters and activists say more needs to be done. Taiwan is setting up a $1 billion credit program to fund joint projects between companies from Taiwan and Lithuania. The announcement came at an online press conference on Tuesday. The Minister of Taiwan's National Development Council, Gong Mingxing, says that the fund will focus on 6 areas of business, including semiconductors and biotech. The announcement comes as Lithuania faces pressure from China over the Baltic nations' warming ties with Taiwan. China considers Taiwan part of its own territory and opposes its efforts to engage the international community. One of the biggest points of contention is Taiwan's newly established representative office in the Lithuanian capital. It uses the word Taiwanese in the title instead of the word Taipei, which is in the names of other representative offices in Europe. Earlier, I spoke to Dovile Shekelina, Lithuanian MP and member of the National Security and Defence Committee. She began by telling me about Taiwan's planned investments and how they are being received.
They are both oriented at sustainable development of Lithuanian and Taiwanese business industries, high-tech industries, which means that our cooperation and friendship and joint ventures being really high added value and sustainable. Lithuania will be moving in the direction that it really wants to go. Our minister mentioned during this meeting with your minister, Mr. Kongu, about Lithuanian laser technologies. We are very well known for having high technologies in laser industry, and they are also facing difficulties because of PRC's coercion to other companies not to buy Lithuanian components.
Dovile, do you believe then that these measures are enough to withstand the pressure from China?
So, of course not, because it's really painful right now. We have to understand that there are 2 levels of damage that is being done to us. So the direct damage that is affecting our exports, but the secondary damage when PRC is threatening or coercing or manipulating Western businesses not to deal with Lithuanian businesses, that is a much wider scale damage that potentially could really harm us a lot. But next to that, what we need is mobilization of our partners. We really need not only to react in this situation to directly help us, Lithuania, but also to withstand the pressure of falling into the trap of false narrative, We all are hearing that Lithuania initiated a conflict with PRC. We did not. This is about them being really aggressive, hostile in reacting to Lithuania's, as any independent democratic state's choice to have relations, economic relations with whom we want.
If Taiwan is made to change the name of its office, what sort of message does this send?
That changing the name of Taiwanese representative office not only would harm Lithuania's reputation, but also it would send a very bad message to the whole world that People's Republic of China can effectively control or at least manipulate the whole Western world. I don't think that's the world that we would like to live in.
Coming up, the mother of all exhibitions. 3 museums join forces for an historic display. Details after the break.
Of that big of a population.
我觉得角度是一件很重要的事情，因为我想要窥见的是深层的内涵物。
冒险就是追求边界点的艺术。
不是台湾没有这种地方，是我根本没有到过这种地方。
The beauty of Taiwan.
It has a style. It has a voice. It has its own characteristics.
你好 is actually very useful when you greet someone in a formal, polite, and professional way.
冒险者回来讲的故事，都会变成那个社会最想听的故事。出发其实就是这样。
Taiwan to the world. See you on TaiwanPlus.
Thanks for watching Taiwan Plus. Follow today's top stories from Taiwan and around the world by downloading the Taiwan Plus app.
Welcome back. You're watching Taiwan Plus News. The World Health Organization says more than 7 million people were infected with COVID-19 in the first week of 2022 and is warning that the window to act against the highly contagious Omicron variant is closing.
50 of the 53 countries in Europe and Central Asia have now reported cases of Omicron. It is quickly becoming the dominant virus in Western Europe and is now spreading into the Balkans. At this rate, the Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation forecasts that more than 50% of the population in the region will be infected with Omicron in the next 6 to 8 weeks.
Over 1% of the population in Europe has been infected with the virus over the past week, leading many countries in the region to introduce stronger vaccine mandates. But the WHO has warned that while vaccines offer good protection against severe disease and death, repeated boosters shots are not a viable long-term strategy for dealing with emerging variants. Russian forces in Kazakhstan say they will begin withdrawing this week after helping to quell anti-government protests. Kazakhstan's president said peacekeepers from the Moscow-led Collective Security Treaty Organization will start a gradual pullout on Thursday and will complete the process within 10 days. President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev told parliamentarians that the situation is now stable. The demonstrations were triggered by a rise in fuel prices and turned into the worst unrest the country has seen in its 30 years of independence. Tokayev labelled the protests a coup attempt instigated by foreign-trained terrorists. At least 164 people were killed in street clashes, according to state media. 3 of Taiwan's most prestigious museums are teaming up to present a first-of-its-kind joint exhibition. The National Palace Museum, the National Taiwan Museum, and the National Museum of Taiwan History are all contributing to this historic display. Eric Gao has more.
Treasures from 3 museums all in one place. In the first cooperative project between the 3 institutions, they are presenting a collection of items to shed light on 3 important aspects of Taiwan's history: indigenous peoples, Hokkien, Han, and other Chinese immigrants, and the officials who ruled over Taiwan across the years.
借着这个机会，可以把台湾的多元文化来做呈现哈。那包括这个台博馆的这个原住民的文物，还有台史博的有关台湾的长民文化，还有故宫的这个宫廷文化。
The exhibition is on show at the National Taiwan Museum in Taipei and brings together over 400 pieces from the 3 museums. The relics give a glimpse into the lives of people ranging from indigenous Taiwan villagers to high-level government officials.
那么一些过去已经没有谈过的题目，像是这个情欲单元呐，像是有一些这个他者的单元，其实在过去的展览里面很少出现，所以台博也能趁这个机会，不只展出一些过去台博所收藏的经典的这个传统的文物，还可以展出一些非正统的文物。
Running through late May, the exhibition gives visitors a deeper look into the past and the various peoples that helped shape the Taiwan of the present. Patrick Chen and Eric Gao for TaiwanPlus.
Scientists have found that some of the tallest trees in Taiwan were 2 separate trees many decades ago. Researchers at National Jia University at Alishan found that Formosan red cypresses, which can reach 50 meters in height and be hundreds of years old, merge together as they grow. By drilling into the tree trunks, the researchers were also able to establish the trees' ages more accurately. They say the way the trees have grown over their lifetime could provide insights into changing climate in Taiwan.
因为这个栖地比较特别，就是说它比较潮湿。第二个是它的土壤的一个酸化，产生灰化的一个现象，让它的变成浅根系。那浅根系之后呢，它就必须做环抱，大家抱在一起之后，它就更能够在那个栖地去做生长。
Now we head over to Jiufeng, where a local resident wanders the town, capturing the sounds of his childhood.
Jiufeng is a place that reminds me of home. The sound of Japanese silvergrass rustling is mother's gentle calling. The sound of waterfall rushing reminds me of father, a brave miner. Every time I return to this familiar place, I always have my recorder, roaming from one street to another, searching for the sound. In those old alleys, the miners have long disappeared, giving way to crowd after crowds of tourists. People wander through the alleys, so much like a parallel space and time. The sound of wooden clogs echoes Granny's footsteps. but the building remains. Reminds me of childhood days where life knows no worry. Perhaps that is also what everyone else is looking for. I remember when Father came home, there would always be a cup of hot tea waiting for him. Together, my parents would have hot tea and watch the sunset turning the streets of Jiufen crimson. And yet, in the old streets bustling with modern sights and sounds, somehow I find the memory of home is just around the corner.
Thanks for watching Taiwan Plus News. I'm Yin Khvat. We leave you with footage of a newborn manatee, a marine mammal native from the Caribbean, at the Dutch city of Arnhem. For more stories from Taiwan and around the world, please download the Taiwan Plus app. Stay safe and see you next time.